And we're off to the castle. You can see the church over there from yesterday, and it's a very long walk down this hill. So hello, good morning. I'm just walking down to the Tintagel Castle, which is mythically the birthplace of King Arthur. I was here in 2018 and I was supposed to go see the castle then. That was one of the reasons I came here. But you'll see in a moment, there's a bridge to get onto the island where the castle ruins are. And that bridge was currently under construction in 2018. Now, the website had said it was supposed to be, finished with construction or whatever by the end of June, and I was here in July, and it was definitely still under construction. So I've been planning to come back ever since, and when I was planning this trip in 2020, that was one of the reasons I wanted to start here, was so that I could go to the castle. Obviously, I went nowhere in 2020, so now that I'm finally back, I'm going to do one of the touristy things and spend 18 pounds to go see some castle ruins on an island. But, this is probably the only really touristy thing that I'm going to be doing on this trip, at least in the European part of it. So I figured, why not? And I'll take you along. And here we go. I'm going to go explore that island. So you can see the bridge. That's what was out last time. Some more ruins here, although I feel like those probably are a little newer than what the castle was, but who knows. And that's the coastal path. So if you continue up that route, it goes back to that hostel that I stayed in several years ago. And then if you go this way, you can kind of see the trail over there. The next little village over is called Boss Castle. It's like, I think about 4.5 miles away. And I did that hike back in 2018. Here's our little entrance point. We've got about 5 minutes. Here we go on this bridge so you can see down there is where I was when I first got here the first day. So many stairs. And there's the coast. You can see the coastal path up there. And all the way down there, you can kind of see it right over there. That's Port Isaac, which is what took me all day to walk yesterday, like almost 10 miles. Doesn't look that far.
Hi.
Morning.
Morning.
And there's the coastal path that direction. Check out this bridge. It's like, has stone slats on it. I imagine this is part of what took it so long to be built. So cool. Kind of creepy too, because we're not close to the ground. That is that. Like great hall. We have a giant banquet hall. I can see all the sea caves now that the tide is low. Similar to the fort that I saw on the Isle of Man last summer. It seems like this was built in multiple phases. You can see the years and the colors. And this looks like some sort of wall or castle gate situation right here. Study of this place is also kind of an ongoing thing. This little hut here was apparently built in, I think, the 1930s. And this guy was trying to figure out, what this site was because it wasn't really well preserved then. He thought it was a Christian monastery, which wouldn't be abnormal. There's lots of islands that serve that purpose. St. Michael's Mount, which you'll see later on in this series, or at least from a distance, is that it's the kind of twin of Mont Saint-Michel, which is off the coast of France. But apparently that's what he thought this was, and it wasn't until the 1990s that they learned that it was an entire settlement here, and as opposed to just a monastic site. So apparently before I'm assuming when they, were finding the ruins here, that's kind of what it would have looked like. That's the old post office, which is quite old. But apparently they thought that the castle was the only thing that was called Tintagel, and the town was called something else. There's lots of trading with the Mediterranean. Apparently Tintagel or Trevana, which is the name of the town, was a kind of a major port for Mediterranean trade in the Roman Empire, which kind of makes sense. I mean, it was sort of the southern tip, easiest to get to, but I've never thought of it that way. So apparently up this coastline, you can see on a clear day all the way to Hartland Point, which is in Devon. You can kind of see it very faintly outlined, but and here's Tintagel from the castle. Apparently it kind of had its ups during the Dark Ages and then downs, and kind of saw a revitalization in the 19th century with the slate mines in the area. So these ruins here date back to, they think, the Dark Ages. They think this one might have been sometime shortly after the collapse of the Roman Empire in the 4th century CE. And they are not really sure what the settlement was like here, but they know that this area, the Tintagel area, kind of emerged as one of importance at this time. Well, this is the end. Next stop from here is probably North America, honestly. This is the King Arthur statue. The edge of the island, which looks out over all of Tintagel and theoretically over all of England. And that right there is why I booked the very first time and made sure I was here when it opened, and booked it pretty much directly to the statue, because not even 5 minutes after I got there, this is what it looks like. People. So they had a well. Looks a little sketchy. Also, apparently Puth means well, and what I'm assuming is Cornish. This is a little garden area that they had. You can kind of see the wall there. I mean, now the whole place is one giant biodiverse garden, but you know. So not only is this mythic birthplace of King Arthur, as told by Geoffrey of Monmouth in the History of the Kings of Britain, but it is also the medieval location of Tristram and Isolde, which is sort of a not Romeo and Juliet, but Romeo and Juliet story that's like British. And also these signs are everywhere. They say stop and then they say something else, and it's kind of adorable. I don't know if we actually want anyone to take off their shoes though. That's just a note. There's this little pathway you can follow in the garden. A lover's tale of, who knows, something. Can't pronounce those things. Oh, I bet it's the Tristan and Isolde story. Oopsie. Yep. It's not quite a Romeo and Juliet story, but there's potions and there's death and tragic love affair. Also, they really do love themselves a dwarf, and these old stories, also hags, very, very popular. I don't know why I'm stepping over them, but they almost feel like gravestones. But then they die. So these little plaques make the Tristram and Isolde story sound like a happily ever after story, but the one I read, yeah, they die. So I'm not quite sure what version they're telling here. So this is the ruins of the chapel, which is part of this like layered building. So there was a settlement here in the Dark Ages, sometime between like 4 and 1100 CE. And then in the like 13th, 14th century, there was kind of like the chapel built here and more kind of development. And then it all sort of fell to ruins for several hundred years until it was discovered as ruins, and they started excavating here, or not excavating, excavating, kind of digging stuff up and trying to understand the history in the early 20th century. So one thing I haven't really talked about that is part of this area is that it's also very like mystic. There's a lot of like witch stuff here. And so if you like walk through shops in town, like I think part of it has a connection to the King Arthur stories, like, you know, the like mystical aspects of it, Merlin and all of these sorts of things. And obviously like, why am I spacing on her name right now? But you know, I'll probably pop it up on the screen here. So there's lots of that sort of stuff. And I don't know if you can see her, but there's this person right over here wearing a green shirt who's just like, looks like she's conducting a symphony. And I wonder if she's doing some magic work. It's kind of cool how they just built into the island as it was. Like you can see the connection of these buildings, and they just utilize this rock face that was already here. Yep, the people behind me are definitely doing something with a stone, some spiritual something. Like, good for them. It almost looks like some sort of funnel. Also looks like it was possibly connected in the past. So maybe like a storage area or something. So this was apparently where the boats would land back in the day. I'm assuming only at high tide, because I don't know how that would work otherwise. But yeah, apparently there's like, there used to be like a wooden dock here or something. And it was a natural place to enter, but it was also pretty easy to defend against, at least once they put up this. It's called the Iron Gates, because apparently there used to be an iron gate here. Unsurprisingly, I was the only one down there. It's quite the hike. You can see that's where I was. And it's really steep. It's very narrow. I mean, there's this gate, so it's not like you're gonna fall off, but I find it curious that the top of the hill, like up by the town, you can take a vehicle down here if you don't want to walk down that hill. But there's no way you can get out to this island and walk around it if you can't make it up and down that hill. So, curious. The exit takes you through that little doorway and then down some really steep stairs down to the sea. Again, if you can't walk down from up there, how are you doing this? Questions. And that's the other little bridge. Part of me wonders if this used to be the only bridge, because it kind of seems like it. Like you'd have to walk down those steps. And here we are back on the beach where I came the first night. And the tide is out, so we can go inside this giant cave, which is known as Merlin's Cave. Again, if you read the Sir Henry Monmouth version of the History of the Kings of Britain, this will make sense. This is the inside of the cave. You can actually go out and be on the other side, but it's quite dark. And like the water comes in this way, so I don't know, slippery. That's not for me today, but it's very cool. So even though that cave over there is like the one with the story, it's actually just lots of caves around here, you can see. And there's some over there. And then there's up there's the castle. Well, the ruins. Lovely visit. I will later learn that there's also a carving of quote-unquote Merlin in this cave. Okay, I'm starting my hike back up the hill. Here's my 2 cents. If you're interested in the King Arthur stories, it's a cool place to visit. But if you're not, unnecessary. I spent about an hour and 40 minutes walking around the island and stuff, and like taking pictures, and part of this is for this class I teach, so it was fun. But yeah, I don't know that I would, this is why I don't go to English heritage sites. Like, I feel like you've seen one, you've seen them all. So I don't know, one a trip, that's fine. That's all for now. Okay, so I got all my stuff and things, got a couple souvenirs, picked up my bag, and I got some lunch. I got a Cornish pasty, which I'll show you, and a cherry Coke. I miss this so much in the States. So this is a Cornish pasty. The traditional one is like beef and like root vegetables, and then they have like a veggie one that's existed for a while, which is like onion and like swedes and carrots and stuff, and like cheese. Not my fave, it's a little salty. So I tried this one. It's technically vegan, which means it's not gonna have any cheese, but it's pretty good. There's like corn and bell peppers and stuff in it. There's like some sort of sauce, but no, this will do. And there's like oregano on the outside, which is not traditional. Here's the next place. Here's my tiny closet room. I have a sink, I have a window, and I have a bed. It's really all I need, so I'm very content. Let's hope that street isn't super loud in the night though. Very different vibes than Tintagel. A lot more seaside holiday than tiny village.